We're going to talk about dotted rhythms now. So I'll go ahead and pull up the fillable dotted rhythms notes, which is what you should have also from my MCPS classroom. And it just looks like this. So first question is, what does a dot do to a note? And this is what a dot is. It's literally just a dot, and it'll go to the right side of whatever note it's affecting. We're going to say a dot adds half of the original value to the note. That's what you'll put in that space. So let's figure out what that actually means by using some examples. So this is the first note we're looking at here, and we said since that is an empty note head and it has no stem, that one's going to be a whole note. So if that whole note originally receives, we said 4 beats, the dot is supposed to add half of the original value. So the original value is 4 beats, which means if we divide 4 in half, we get 2. So that means the dot is going to add 2 beats. So the total value then is going to be 4 plus 2, which is 6 beats. This rhythm that is 6 beats long is going to look like this. It's just a whole note with a dot. And interestingly enough, it is going to be called a dotted whole note. So if you see this, you're going to call it a dotted whole note and you're going to hold it for 6 beats. The other interesting thing to note is that this dotted whole note is actually the same exact thing as if we had a whole note tied to a half note, right? Because we're going to take 4 beats from that whole note and 2 from the half note, and then since this is a tie, we would add them together. So they're the exact same thing, these two guys right here. There's just different situations when you might want to use one over the other, and we'll see what those are sometime in the future. So next situation here, we're looking at this plus a dot equals this. So this first type of note is an empty note head and then also has a stem. That one we said is a half note. The half note, we said usually in the world, originally receives 2 beats. This one's going to be 2 beats long. So remember, we said the dot adds half of the original value to the note. So if the original value is 2 and we divide that in half, that means the dot is going to add 2 divided by 1, or 2 divided by 2, which is 1. So if a half note originally receives 2 beats, the dot is going to add 1 beat. So that means we're going to add 2 plus 1 together to get 3 beats. So that means this rhythm right here that we just created is a half note plus a dot, and it gets 3 beats. That rhythm is just called, again, super easy, a dotted half note. This dotted half note also is the same as if we were going to tie a half note to a quarter note. Because if the half note gets 2 beats and the quarter note gets 1 beat, and if they're the same exact pitch, then we can tie them together, which means we're just adding their values together. So that would be 2 plus 1, which would be 3. And that's the same as your dotted half note. So dotted half note, exactly the same as half note tied to a quarter note. For the last situation here, we're looking at this plus this equals this. So we're saying if this type of note, which is filled in the note head, it's a solid note head, and has a stem, we said that was a quarter note. And we said usually a quarter note is going to receive 1 beat. So if the dot is going to add half of the original value, and the original value is 1, we're going to divide 1 in half. That means the dot is going to get half of a beat in this situation. So we're going to add then these two things together. So if this is 1 and this is a half, that means our final product is going to be 1.5 beats. So I'm going to put 1.5 because that's what I want to put. So that means this symbol here is going to get 1.5 beats total. And that's just a quarter note plus a dot, which again, super easy. We are just calling it a dotted quarter note. So your dotted quarter note is going to get 1.5 beats. Just like before, your dotted quarter note can also be formed by tying a quarter note to an eighth note. Because we said a quarter note is 1 beat, and an eighth note is half a beat. So if we add 1 plus a half, we're going to get 1.5 beats if they're tied together like that. So your dotted quarter note is the exact same thing as a quarter note tied to an eighth note, and they're both 1.5 beats long. We will speak some other time about how to takadimi those things, but hopefully you've got those notes down.